Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Johnson. I'm the president of MassMEDIC, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to another virtual event in our series of events covering the medtech industry. Today's topic is the changing face of medtech. This is a really exciting program that we're excited to put together with our partners at PA Consulting. And it's really focusing on how the new players coming into the medtech space, and I think these are some of the really exciting players that are coming in that we're with today. But non-traditional medtech companies are entering this industry at a seemingly record clip. Every day we hear about new entrants into the space. How are they going to impact the industry? How are they going to change the industry for the better? How is the knowledge of their knowledge of the consumer going to change the industry? So these are really exciting topics. We'll touch on some of these during the program. Our program today will be monitored by Mark Ignatios. He's a partner at PA Consulting, a MassMEDIC member and friend. And we'll be featuring Sean Reynolds. He's the Associate Director of Marketing and Business Development MedTech for Kohler and Company. And Jaidev Kinikar, and he is the VP of Virtual Care offering at Best Buy Health. So this is a really exciting panel. We have kind of covered the spectrum here of different players in the medtech space. Just a couple housekeeping notes before I hand over the reins to Mark. We're going to have a dedicated section for Q&A after the panel discussion. So if you have a question, please enter it into the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. You just click on that, and then you can enter a question. And if, when in doubt, you can also enter it into the chat function. We are recording this program, and so it will be available on demand for everyone who registered for it. So if you miss something here or there, don't worry, we'll be sending that out to you. Make sure that you keep up with it. So before I go turn my camera off and hide on mute, monitoring everything in this incredible discussion, I want to welcome Mark and Jaidev and Sean. We really look forward to your comments today. So Mark, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. And hi, everyone. So just a brief intro for myself. I'm, as Brian indicated, I'm a partner here in our New York City office at PA Consulting. I lead our MedTech capabilities at the firm. We've been supporting a lot of the trends across the industry, whether it's the digitization of healthcare that's been obviously accelerated with COVID, or some of the transition trends that are taking place from the hospital to the home. We're doing a lot of great work here supporting the design and development of some of the products across a number of therapeutic areas, whether it's the future of oncology or blood dialysis and other areas as well. But as Brian indicated, the topic for today is obviously non-traditional players in this space. We're going to touch on three key areas for us here. We'll talk about the perspectives, obviously both from Jaidev and Sean's, and so Best Buy and Kohler's, the perspective on their companies and how they're coming into the space, but also what is their observations, obviously, for the industry. The second area we'll touch on is we'll talk about some of the challenges of how the industry is changing as well with obviously the non-traditional players coming into the space. So we'll get their perspective. And then the third area we're going to touch on is really the overall impression of medtech across, historically has been that it moves slow regardless of how big the company is. And so we'll talk a little bit about, whether the non-traditional players coming into the space, and obviously in this instance, Best Buy and Kohler, what their sense is about that, and whether they can be maybe a little bit more agile in that space. So these are the three main areas for us for today. Well, obviously, as Brian indicated, we'll take some questions towards the end. But before we jump in, maybe Sean, if you don't mind doing a brief or just an intro of yourself.
Sure. As mentioned before, I'm the Associate Director of Marketing and Business Development here at Kohler. I've been with Kohler now for a year, but I have 24 years of medical device experience. That experience has ranged from startup organizations to Fortune 500 size orgs, primarily in a sales and marketing capability. And most recently, I was in the spine aspect of the medical device industry, where I was in that sector for, oh my gosh, 14 years. I just recently completed my doctorate in business from Georgia State University as well.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for joining us today. And J-Dev?
Thanks, Mark, and good afternoon, everyone. As you can see, it looks sunny here in Boston, but I think it's the calm before the storm that's going to hit us tomorrow. So crossing my fingers, everyone stay safe, those who are in Boston area. So J-Dev Clinical, thrilled to be here with you and Sean and Mark. I am the Vice President of Offering Management for Virtual Care. And as of last week, I also took on new responsibility to lead strategy for Best Buy Health as well. I've been at Best Buy for about 9 months, and my charter is to establish the virtual care business in provider, payer, and the senior living space. Prior to Best Buy, I've been at large corporations such as GE and Philips, building innovation ventures focused on virtual care, remote patient monitoring, telehealth, and so on. My focus has been to create startups within large companies and help them establish new segments for growth. Actually, I started my career back in good old Detroit in automotive industry with the hands-on engineering stuff, which I still miss doing, building electric vehicles before they were cool, early 2000 days. So, and I'm excited to be here with MassMEDIC members. I think we have a really good, strong purpose, and it's the passion with this team. I'm looking forward to good conversations today with you all.
Great, thanks, J-Dev. Yeah, no, appreciate it. So why don't we just jump in? And I think the first topic, Sean, if you don't mind starting with you. So non-traditional players, and obviously, I think to remind everyone, the non-traditional players, I think the industry is using that term to describe everybody or every company that's not a medical device company. So it could be a big tech, it could be some of the retailers and so forth. Obviously, for us today, it's the non-traditionals are Best Buy and Kohler. But as they're coming into the market, with them comes a lot of promise of widespread or maybe even improved care for our patients. I'd love to hear sort of your thoughts on what Kohler brings to the table.
Certainly, and I think this will be true for a lot of these consumer goods organizations that are moving into this medtech space. I think what you'll find is that when these type of organizations get involved, they bring an expertise in human-centered design. It was often that I would hear from some of our medical device users that there's not a lot of human-centered design. A lot of the products could be bulky, cumbersome, but they were designed to fulfill sort of a surgical task or a medical task. So there was not a lot of thought that went behind some of the design of these products. It's really exciting, with the Kohlers, the Best Buys, the Apples, the Amazons of the world that are getting involved in this space can bring along this aspect of really designing products that resonate with consumers and patients. And what you'll find, and I think research shows this as well, what you'll find is that a product that is easy to operate, easy to understand, easy to use, the user will more readily adopt it. So it's really exciting to see what we can do in this market space in terms of adopting technologies that will benefit patients and ultimately help those patients manage their care in a much more proactive nature.
Yeah, and JDev, maybe the same question to you as well. I'd love to hear what Best Buy also has to offer or to bring to the table here in this space.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have this question, Best Buy and health, where is that coming from? And I had the same question before I joined Best Buy, but Best Buy actually has been operating in this space under the radar for about 3 years. We have had significant acquisitions in this space. And today we actually operate in 3 areas of businesses. The first one is what we call as consumer health. So think about all the healthcare devices that you can buy in our retail stores or on our website. So think about a blood pressure cuff, think about Fitbit, think about different medical devices you can buy in our store. That's our very rapidly growing consumer health category. And we are looking to bring more of the consumer experiences to enable the product adoption through that space. Our second business is what we call as active aging. This is the business that we got into through the acquisition of a company called Great Call. And what we do in active aging is we help seniors live a safe and healthy life at home. So we basically provide personal emergency response services, PERS, which is a combination of different devices, different variables. And we have a 24/7 caring center with over 1,400 agents or caring agents, as we call them, who not only provide emergency response service to somebody lying on the floor, but also help them with some of the social determinants of health as well. Through the active aging business, we also have some of the consumer-centric, human-centric devices, including smartphones, that make it easier for seniors to use the device and call for help and stay connected with their caregivers. The third business is the virtual care business. And in this business, we play in provider, payer, and senior living market. In the provider space, we just acquired a company called Current Health very, very recently. And through the acquisition of Current Health, we are now in the business of remote patient monitoring, addressing multiple use cases there in the post-acute space, hospital at home, chronic condition management, and then taking the patient on the entire virtual care journey. Through our payer business, we play in the Medicare and Medicare Advantage space programs. And then senior living, we cater to large senior living communities such as Atria and Holidays to, again, help seniors live safely in their home. So if we take a step back and if I reflect on some of my past experience in GE and Philips, I really realized that despite having the good technology and analytics, what was always missing was the last mile into the home. And I think pandemic has only shed a light on the human nature. And Sean, you talked about the human-centered design of the healthcare. And while every other aspect of the technology is very important, healthcare is human, healthcare is personal, and that is happening in the home. That's where we think that Best Buy can help, partnering with health systems and providers to enable delivering care in a seamless way at home, enable making the connections between physicians and patients and caregivers. Think about a grandma who's been discharged from the home, going home, 80-year-old grandma with comorbidities, expecting her to download an app on a phone, connect it to a Bluetooth, through a blood pressure monitor, and trying to get enrolled in the program. That's very, very challenging. That's where we want to help with our expertise in supply chain logistics, with our consumer understanding, with our footprint, where we actually have a presence within 15 minutes of 85% of the population in the US. We think we can provide the backbone and seamless service into home and partner with the health systems to enable care into home. And we can talk more about that as we go into this, but that's where Best Buy is focused on. And we think we have a different approach and strategy from other retailers, where we really want to partner with providers and enable care into home.
Thanks, Jaydev. And you prompted another thought for me here. In terms of, you mentioned that you've done, or Best Buy has done a number of acquisitions in this space. Is there a balance to how your organization goes about whether, building versus buying, if you use that theme? Any specific thought here for Best Buy?
Yeah, I think for any company getting into this space, whether it's traditional, non-traditional, I think really having a self-awareness around what is the core competency that you have and what are the core sets of capabilities and assets that you bring to a table. I think that assessment is so crucial. And that's what we have been going through over the last 6 to 9 months to make sure that we want to be here so that we can leverage the Best Buy enterprise assets and capabilities. But then we don't necessarily want to be in the business for example, delivering clinical care at home. Yep. And so we kind of drew some of the boundaries around what is it that we are going to be good at and what is it that we're going to partner in terms of make, buy, and partner. And so that's where we realized that we need to have a strong technology platform. And it doesn't make sense to go and build it and take 3 years to be in the market by the time we would miss the bus. And we went and acquired Current Health from that perspective. We know that we need to integrate rest of our capabilities on the ecosystem, but ecosystem is big. If you think about delivering care into home, and if you think about a hospital at home program, there are 18, 20 different types of services that need to be delivered into home. So think about medication, think about infusion, think about imaging. And that's where we want to develop an ecosystem and partner with multiple players. So really taking a capability-backed approach to say, what are we good at that we need to keep on improving and building? What is the core capability that we need to acquire that is important from a value chain perspective to create value and deliver value? And then what is it that we need to partner for the larger ecosystem where it's a team play to deliver the right care for patient and caregiver at home?
Makes a lot of sense. And Sean, to you for a second. I know Kohler is just now starting that journey, obviously, but just from your background there, just your general perspective on not necessarily Kohler, but the industry wide for non-traditionals coming into the space. Do you have a different perspective on what they bring, what they can bring to the marketing industry?
So just sort of observing in the last 24 years, then coming into a consumer goods organization, I think Kohler or any other consumer goods organization, what you'll find is they have very strong marketing and branding capabilities, because that's going to go a long way towards spreading the message. What's the value proposition of the product that you're ultimately going to put out in the market and get those individuals to resonate with it. I find that Kohler has very strong manufacturing capabilities. Now, coming into the MedTech side of things, they don't have all the necessary ISO certs. That's just a matter of timing, right? So it's just a matter of designing those and making sure where you're going to manufacture the product falls under those regulations. That will happen. And so this sort of alludes to what Jaydev mentioned, buy versus build. You coming into this, there's no way you're going to build a product and you don't have the expertise. So you're going to have to rely heavily on partnerships, very strategic partnerships, to help you bring these products to market. But the distribution, the manufacturing, the marketing arm that Kohler can bring, that will be very impactful, I feel, on the industry. And you're sort of seeing it now with, think about Apple, what they've done and how they've made their move into this health sector with their Apple Watch. I mean, that's a classic case of them taking dynamic capabilities, assessing what they're good at, and then making that move into MedTech very seamlessly.
So focusing on the making the move, which obviously there's a lot of perspective that goes into it from a consumer / patient angle. How do you influence that perspective? You know, we just renovated. We're actually in the process of renovating a home, and when I hear Kohler, I hear the traditional things that I know of at Kohler. But how do you change my perspective on, well, you know, it's not only the faucets that I can get from Kohler, it's also other healthcare products that I can actually also get from Kohler. What do you do, or how do you change that perspective?
So I think that perspective will change organically. The growth of digital health, remote patient monitoring, it has been documented that that's going to happen in the home. That now the technology, you have this intersection of technology and medicine coming together, where physicians will be able to monitor their patient's health. So they'll be able to monitor urinalysis. They'll be able to do fecal analysis, blood draws, collect information from the saliva. So a lot of these things are going to happen in the bathroom. Yeah. And so for a Kohler, and this will be specific to Kohler, for us to make that jump and for it to make sense for the consumer, we can't come out with a product that you find in your living room. You can't come out with a product that you find in the dining room. That's a bit of a disconnect. You know, Kohler is the king of the bathroom. So whatever product we come out with has to be centered around a toilet, a sink, a mirror, a faucet, your shower. Once that product is launched, I think it's going to be very easy for the consumer to make that jump and say, that makes sense. I want to buy that product.
And JDEF, I think the same. So I was actually briefing my wife this morning that we're having our panel discussion today, and she asked me who was on. And I told her Best Buy was going to be on, and she looked at me very puzzled, like, "Why is Best Buy? You're in the life science space. Why is Best Buy on the call?" But again, so again, focus on the same question around perspective. How does Best Buy just kind of shift that perspective as well for consumers as well as and communicate to patients?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think if we take a step back and if you look at what has happened in the last 2 years, a pandemic, sort of post-pandemic or endemic, I think the patient-consumer convergence has only been accelerated in the last 2 months. And we have seen some of the perceived barriers that were insurmountable in the past really come down in terms of regulatory access to different telehealth virtual care technologies, to people really being comfortable getting care delivered into home and having a conversation with a physician. And so we have been, as an industry, have been talking about consumerization of healthcare for a long time, but I think it's really been a catalyst over the last 2 years to start making that happen. And the reason it is important is because I think the consumer-centric approach has been one of the catalysts and disruptors in many other industries to really make technology easily accessible, have the right experiences, empathy-driven experiences, and more importantly, create business models that work for consumers and not only for businesses the other way around. Best Buy has been a consumer-centric company for decades. Best Buy is a well-known brand as a consumer. I'm pretty sure many people probably bought something on bestbuy.com or in a store in the Black Friday or last few weeks, the holiday shopping list. So for consumers, Best Buy is a well-known brand that is known for certain attributes. It's a brand awareness. What we want to do is we don't necessarily want to deliver care through the Best Buy brand. We still feel that you still want to trust your physician. You still want to go to your physician and have the provider brand that is a trusted brand. That's what they're good at in delivering care. We want to be a partner in making that happen. So in the provider side of things, we are going to be partner with health systems to enable care into home. And that's where the brand is going to be built with health systems, and healthcare is personal, healthcare is regional as well. So I think there's a regional element to that. I think where we are going to make it seamless is, again, imagine somebody being discharged from a post-operative surgery from a hospital, and that person, maybe it's a person with knee or hip replacement surgery, and that person not only requires a certain number of health devices to be set up at home, that the person requires the house to be modified, that person can, we envision a day when that person can walk into a Best Buy store on the way, and we will have an advisor who can actually advise on the right type of devices and connectivity. And Geek Squad actually has access to home for millions of consumers today. And we think healthcare version of Geek Squad can actually come and help you set up your home, install your devices, calibrate, and help you, give you training on how do you operate those devices, and then work with the health systems to make sure that when somebody is remote monitoring the health of a patient consumer, we actually have ways and means to intervene on any patient deterioration, decompensation. We can actually send somebody to take care of that. So all the rest of the harder part of healthcare monitoring is something that Best Buy, we think we can help reduce the pain and challenges in that perspective. So I think it's really about making sure that we look at patient consumer as one continuum of journey. Today, we look at that in a very siloed way. We look at that through a business model lens. Typically, a lot of times, a Medicare Advantage patient is the same patient is going to a hospital for a specific episode, is the same consumer who needs certain health devices or electronics. And so how do you seamlessly help that patient transition between different care settings at home, recover from different episodes? And more importantly, how do you help complex senior citizens live a seamless life, sort of an ecosystem of care at home that we can enable with our other ecosystem partners? So that's where we want to go. The last comment I will add here, Mark, is I think it's truly important for any non-traditional medtech company to bring that human-centric, design-centric approach to build the experiences that wrap around the technology. Even though some of us may start with the technology and wrapping around that holistic offerings and holistic experiences is what's going to help us make a difference in the life of a patient and a caregiver.
Yeah, and I fully agree, Jaydev. I think COVID, to a large extent, has been, in hindsight, somewhat of an inflection point in healthcare. There's been tremendous innovation across technology, and I think the consumer adoption of technology has been absolutely amazing, and COVID has made that, really has pushed it and made it even more prevalent, accelerated that trend. And so consumers, myself included, we are more open now to potentially, we want to consume our healthcare the same way we do order our food on an app and so forth. And so I think it's opened the door, in my opinion, for a lot of non-traditional players, again, using the generic term here, to really get into the space and improve patient care at the end of it. Moving on from this topic to the next, I think MedTech in general, I've been in this space, obviously, as a lot of us have for quite a long time, regardless of the size of the company. Slow moving is sort of what the industry has been. There's obviously, when you think about consumers, there's a quicker or an accelerated pace to what they expect. How do you see, for example, Sean, Kohler coming into the space and just maybe being a little bit more nimble than what a traditional medtech company would be in this space?
So I look at it from really a couple of different lenses. There's a negative, there's a positive. The positive being we can think outside of the box. We're not constrained to, well, this isn't how it's typically done in medtech. So we don't know how it's done in medtech. So you can bring a very different lens, and that can be impacted on the product development process, the manufacturing process, distribution, et cetera. So that's very freeing. But at the same time, on the negative side of things, we don't come from the medtech space. So that, we have those issues, being a large organization, making sure that we move quickly or quick enough. Consumer goods tends to move faster than medtech in certain aspects. But for instance, from my medical device experience, we're used to getting a product designed to where it's like 85% of the way there, and you launch it, and you know that you're going to get the additional inputs when it's out there. And so then you iterate on that product, and you're able to get products out very fast. From a consumer goods aspect, that can be kind of risky to do that, because you only have one opportunity to make a good impression when you're trying to move into this space. So you want to minimize the number of iterations that your product would have to go through before it's close to perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, but close to perfect. So those are some of the things we're going to have to sort of weigh: the risk versus the speed.
And JDF, also the same question to you. What are some of the challenges do you think that you'd be running into and really measuring that pace of medtech versus consumer?
Yeah, talking about pace, Mark, I mean, I coming from the traditional healthcare technology medtech space from Philips, the pace of retail is breathtaking in Best Buy in the retail space, right? It's very different. It's very quick. It's very transactional. We don't talk about years, right? It's months and weeks. So I think, first of all, for any non-traditional medtech player, technology player, you really want to make sure that you're starting with big, hairy, ambitious goals, right? And if you don't have those goals, it's not worth taking your established core competencies and your brand and trying to create a new space. So I think that's first important thing, is make sure that you have ambitious goals, and they need to be big, and they are going to be hairy. I mean, there's no easy way to do this. So be in it for the long run. Second one is, I think, make sure that you really hone in on understanding the clarity of the problem you're trying to solve, and make sure it is a true problem you're trying to solve, and not starting with a piece of technology that is cool and sexy, but it is a true problem that is worth solving financially, clinically, and operationally for a defined customer. I think that's very important. Third, I would say, is challenge the status quo. I mean, when you go and shop at any e-commerce retail site or Best Buy store, Mark, do you get a bill that says this is not a bill and it lists out prices? No, but this is what I get at home. I get a bill that says this is not a bill, right? That's what we get from our health insurance companies. And so challenging some of those status quos is going to be very important. And I think when you start challenging some of the assumptions in status quo and why certain things have to be done a certain way, that itself allows you to identify inefficiency in the system and helps you gain pace and speed and momentum on addressing the problems. I think FDA has made remarkable progress in last few years. I think they are working more and more with the industry players to reduce some of the burden. Some of the programs that have started around digital health are, I think, really good that we should all take advantage of. I think be comfortable with imperfect solutions. I think that's what Sean touched on as well. I think, again, traditional MedTech players have a tendency to perfect everything. And yes, I think for certain class of devices, it's important to obviously focus on quality and regulatory, no question at all. But sometimes there are some devices, technologies that don't need to be a certain type of, class 2 device, as examples. There are ways in which you can still help make certain medical decisions, prognosis, diagnostics, without being, so really truly understanding the framework from a regulatory perspective is important, but then just being comfortable with not knowing everything, comfortable with taking the lean startup approach. That's important, using a hypothesis to converge on a problem and a solution fit, a customer and a product fit. That's important. And the last I would say is healthcare is riddled with a graveyard of companies who have never been able to cross the chasm between a pilot and a scale. And every health system wants to do a pilot with every startup. And every startup, would bend their back and do pilots and customize things. And that's a way to, get going. Absolutely, no doubt. But I think as a non-traditional player, you really want to understand how do you go from a pilot to a scale? How do you have a solution that is scalable from an infrastructure perspective, that is scalable from a business model perspective? That is, yes, it can work on one site for one customer. Can it scale across 100 sites? Can you repeat your business model in a profitable way, scale it up across multiple customers? And I think that's where you're going to go gain some speed and pace. So, I like to say, go slow to go fast. And I think that's a classic design thinking methodology and approach. And I think that's what is going to be important.
Yeah, good point. We specifically on the FDA, we did a survey earlier this year on, well, not specifically about the FDA, but on innovation. We did a survey earlier this year to get a sense for what are some of the challenges for MedTech companies, or what are the perceived challenges for MedTech companies around innovation. And actually, regulatory burden was probably atop of the list. Well, not probably, was atop of the list of things that that companies or innovators seem to think that is a challenge to get into that space. But that's actually a great point of focus as well for us for today's conversation. Sean, I think you mentioned earlier as well, obviously to get into this space, if for regulated products, there's a whole effort and type of skill sets and backgrounds and so forth to be able to really develop and put a regulated product on the market, working with the FDA. Do you have any specific thoughts on whether do you think that's a challenge for the for Kohler or for the industry? And if so, do you have any specific thoughts on how to really navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it'll be a challenge. I don't think any of these are insurmountable issues. what they're going to need to do, Kohler or any other organization, you outsource that capability, the regulatory, clinical. You work with a consulting firm that specializes in walking through your product and where they see it fitting and what that regulatory pathway is going to be. Better to have them on board sooner as opposed to later, because you don't want to get through your whole design and then you realize you could have done some things differently in that design process. So you just outsource that capability when you're talking about one or two products. Once you've now had a cadence of things that are in the pipeline of development, then you can bring that skill in-house so that you're not paying, don't shoot me, Mark, but you're not paying the consulting fees of having these regulatory consultants at the ready. But I don't think it's anything that's not unsurmountable. So it's just a matter of utilizing your resources externally as needed.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And I think on that topic as well, and maybe this is the last thought to Jada for you is, again, when you think about regulatory and quality and a lot of the type of functional expertise that you traditionally need to support a regulated product, there's been a lot of noise, I would say, in the industry at this stage around some of the access to resourcing in that space or skill set in that space. Do you feel, as a non-traditional company, do you feel, non-traditional competitor in this space, do you feel that Best Buy, for example, in terms of competition with the industry, you'd be competing for talent and resourcing in this space, or what are your thoughts around that?
Yes, we are, but probably not in the same way as the traditional medtech players are competing with each other for the same type of talent. I think our talent needs are different. Our talent needs are really around taking a practical approach on what does it take to address specific needs of consumer patient at home with working with providers and payers. And what that means is we don't need to bring in all the expertise required for a traditional medtech player in-house from the get-go. We can take a very, very pragmatic approach and say, as an example, we do have a very strong leader on our team who comes from a classical medtech background, who is leading our quality and regulatory function. But that person works very closely with some of the industry experts and consultants. And I think that's the way to go forward, because what you don't want to do is burden your entrepreneur venture type of approach with significant overhead from the early on. You really want to, again, be very pragmatic about what are you going to be good at, what the industry and its ecosystem and partners and consultants are good at, and shamelessly use those expertise in so that you can actually focus on where you can make a difference for your customers. And so I think from a talent acquisition perspective, yes, we have had to spend a little bit more effort on trying to articulate our vision, our value proposition to different talents. But honestly, actually, the pandemic has actually also opened sort of the traditional mindset on some of the talent, and people want to actually be closer to a customer, closer to a patient. They want to be in the thick of the action. And a lot of them want to take the risk now actually to do things differently. And that has been actually a good tailwind for us to find a good talent and not so much of a struggle from that perspective.
Yeah, no, that's great insight. And Sean, actually, we'll just complete our discussion here just with you on this particular thought. How does Kohler and potentially other non-traditionals here attract talent to organizations, but more importantly is how do you provide them a career path as well to help you build your business?
Yeah, I think wow, that's a very good question. And I think it's all about knowing what your value proposition is. You're going to have to target individuals who want to take their experience, and it depends on where they're at in that patient care continuum curve. I come from the surgical side, so that was always the very last bastion of treatment to treat some disease state. For me, it resonated to me that I was able to move to the beginning of this curve so that you can impact thousands more in helping them manage their disease state. So I think it's going to be incumbent on companies to really understand why they're getting into the space, be able to articulate that to the individuals that they're trying to recruit. I don't think it'll take a lot to twist one's arm to make that switch, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, great. It sounds like that's how Kohler probably got you over.
Yes.
No, but I do agree. I think it's an exciting space. I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially when you focus on the patient. There's a lot of opportunity for folks across the industry to really contribute and go across from traditionals to non-traditionals as well. It's certainly an exciting space for MedTech, as we're seeing right now, with a lot of capital going towards MedTech companies, and the trends seem to hopefully persist for the next few years, and the industry attracting even more capital. So it's an exciting space. It's very exciting. And with that, Brian, I think we're going to hand it back to you.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for a great discussion thus far. I'd love to ask a couple questions here. Just Sean and Jaidev, there's a tremendous amount of interest when companies make these announcements that they're getting involved and things like that. How much inbound do you guys get in terms of people wanting to partner with your companies? That sort of, I'd love to kind of understand, are you inundated with inbound calls, or is it controllable?
I can take that first because I'm getting a lot of the inbound calls. It's controllable, but you have to. I don't want to waste anyone's time based upon where we're at in our process. So I always have to preface that with those individuals. But I think it's always good for those organizations to reach out, send the email, send a note on LinkedIn. What it does is it puts you on the radar. And I think ultimately, in the next 5 or so years, and Kohler's launched 2 or 3 of these products, that will become sort of a beacon where people will come to us automatically with their ideas, or even startups will come to us with their ideas, and we'll definitely be willing and ready to have those conversations.
Right, because you guys, you're still pretty quiet in terms of where you're going to be concentrating and things like that. So I don't want you to step out of line or anything. But is there anything you are currently looking for partners on that, or is that still quite under the radar?
So I would say folks could reach out to us via with respect to clinical and regulatory expertise, and if they have technologies that they think that would be a good complement to the Kohler line of products, they can also reach out to me. I'm not the end all deciding factor. We do have a team, but at least I can then make the introductions and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I would imagine it's a double-edged sword, right? Because people think, oh, well, now they have the resources of all this giant brand behind them, but really these are units of larger companies. So.
Exactly.
All right. Jaidev, Best Buy has been in the space. So have you noticed an uptick just in terms of interest since the Current Health acquisition, or is it pretty steady?
Yeah, I think uptick, I would say just overall since the start of the pandemic, because first of all, a strong pull from several health systems who actually want to partner with us to solve the last mile into the home. Second, I would say, Brian, is again, a strong pull from different venture capital and private equity communities as we started taking a look at what type of acquisitions we want to make in this space. And actually, for us to acquire Current Health, we actually took a very methodical market scan, looked at over 300 companies, and Current Health was one of the top 5 that we narrowed down, and then further went as a perfect fit for us. So I think there is a tremendous interest. We are actually in the process of planning for JP Morgan, and I just feel like don't have enough time and days to meet all the interesting people and companies we want to meet over there. I think because Best Buy is so huge in terms of the type of electronics and devices they cover, we tend to get a lot of diverse type of interest and inquiries as well. So sometimes it does become a little bit of challenging as we have a very specific strategy that we're following right now. And as I said, it is really around our provider payer and senior living market. So we are in the healthcare. This is not only consumer health play, and a lot of people don't realize that, right? I think for a lot of people, it's Fitbits and smartwatches selling through retail stores. And I think that's first thing people need to understand. But we do have a dedicated strategic partnerships and BD team. So I welcome any interest from the MassMEDIC members. Feel free to reach out. I don't guarantee any quick response, especially in the holidays times, but I think definitely something that I do want to nurture some of the ecosystem connections in the state, across the state with MassMEDIC members. And I truly believe in, I think the ecosystem partnership is what going to help all of us move forward in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because I know Best Buy for several years now has been sort of saying, no, really, we're in healthcare. And I think it's been an interesting dichotomy between, you get the other big consumer companies come in and people are all excited about it. But I think Best Buy's had been very persistently sort of saying, yes, we are in the health tech world. So it's really, really exciting and interesting. And you also have Deborah DeSanzo as your recently named CEO. So it seems like there's definitely a tone change there. And I think it's seemed to be picking up steam. So it must be a fun thing to be a part of. Well, I think that actually brings us to the end of our webinar. So I want to go ahead and thank our esteemed panelists, Sean, Jaidev, and Mark, for your able guiding of this discussion. It was informative and really, really on topic and exciting and interesting. Again, we're going to be sending out the replay of this webinar so you can take a look, and we'll also go ahead and make sure that we get that to you in a timely manner. I want to thank PA Consulting for their support of this webinar and for helping us put this program together. It's just one of many we're going to have. We actually have a full week of webinars at MassMEDIC. Tomorrow we have our FDA update for 2021 that you can still sign up for on our website. And then on Thursday, we have a patient engagement webinar with our partners, Metadata Solutions. So a busy week, and we're going to be wrapping up our 2021 virtual calendar in the next couple of weeks. So we want to thank you again for staying with us this year and for participating in these. It's been an incredible year of sharing ideas. I believe we've done more than 90 virtual programs in 2021. So an incredible amount of great content, all made possible by our members. And I just want to thank you all and have a wonderful day. And we'll see you soon on the next one. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you so much.
Everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Bye-bye.